All right, everyone. Welcome to this session of DEMOFEST, which is entitled Why Add Video Automation to Your Pre-Sales Process with Tony here. And this conference is hosted by Consensus. We help pre-sales teams scale with intelligent demo automation. We'll be recording this session. We'll post the links in the recording in about 2 weeks to our Scaling Pre-Sales and Sales Engineering LinkedIn group. I'll drop the link to that group in the chat so you guys can all join it and be there when it comes out. As a quick introduction, Tony is a solutions consulting manager in the tax professional sales department at Thomson Reuters. In his role, he oversees over 18 solution consultants that provide web-based and live product demos during their sales processes. And before moving to this role, he held the title of lead internal delivery and training in consulting and implementation. Tony started his career with Thomson Reuters supporting the CS professional suite of products as a technical support specialist, and then transitioned full-time as a technical trainer. He continues to train internally on presentation skills and crucial conversations, and we're looking forward to hearing what he has for us today.
Awesome. Well, thanks for the introduction, Taylor, and welcome to Why Add Video to Your Pre-Sales Process. Let me go ahead and share my other screen here. All right. Yeah, so sound pretty good on paper, I suppose. For those of you that are not familiar with Thomson Reuters, we're one of the world's most trusted providers of answers, helping professionals make confident decisions and run better businesses. Our customers operate in a complex arena that moves society forward. Law, tax, compliance, governments, media. There's a lot of areas the company spans across. And we can face increasing complexity as regulation and technology disrupts every industry. Now, that's definitely a good writer in the marketing team. So as Taylor mentioned, I'm specifically aligned with the tax professional sales segment. And as you heard, I've had a little bit of an interesting journey of where I've been at Thomson Reuters, but I found my way into an area that really I've become having a bit of a passion for. So what I want to go through in a little bit is...
Hey, Tony.
Yes, sir.
We're not seeing your screen quite yet.
Oh, well, that's always good.
Just as a heads up.
Fantastic. How about we do this then instead?
There we go.
There we go. That looks a little better. Apologies. Well, nothing like technology to start off on the right foot as far as what we like to go through. So yeah, what I wanted to cover as far as the agenda goes through today, start with a little bit of history, where I was 4 years ago when I was forced to look at things differently about how we approach demos and the pre-sales process at Thomson Reuters. I'll give an overview of the Consensus platform to really understand how it impacted our process. And I'll also touch on a tool that we've adopted to automate the demo scheduling process, which is another area that I'm sure that we all love, near and dear. I'll get into our experience with Consensus in the first 100 days, which is kind of the crux of what my presentation is around, and then talk about our usage since then and where we see that growth going in 2020. We'll also make sure and have time to answer any questions that might come up during the presentation towards the end, as Taylor mentioned as well. All right. Before we get too far in, though, I want to ask a question. So if you were able to get unbiased feedback from your customers about their experience with your current demos, what would they say? If you got a second, go ahead and throw them in the chat. We'll give a moment or two and see if we can get some chat portions to come up. And there's a separate Q&A section we'll do for question and answer. The chat feature is where I was hoping we can go through some of those. Depends on who's doing the demo. That's a good point. Sure. Customized, conversational. Some people say it looks complicated. Oh, my co-presenter, Peter Cohen, Harbor Tours. Oh no, that's the last thing we want to see. Detailed, functionality focused, compelling. Oh, good stuff. Okay. Now, of course, if you're the sales engineer who's delivering this, everything's outstanding, right? It's exactly what you want to deliver to the customer. It's exactly what they want to see. So I do think if we want to take a real honest assessment of your current state it's important. You want to think about what you do today. Somebody mentioned features. Do we rely heavily on features? What Peter Cohen calls the feature dump, right? Is that a presentation theme that you run into? Do you have a clear narrative that you're trying to communicate? If I pull from Mark Green's session earlier on story crafting for maximum results, do you have a compelling story for the audience? Or is it just information that you're, putting on autopilot and regurgitating over and over and over again? Most importantly, are you connecting the demo content with an adult's primary question? What's in it for me? Now, I might be getting a little bit of my training background talking about Malcolm Knowles and andragogy, but the concepts about how adults learn are definitely transferable here. Getting to that ultimate why behind the purchase decision sets the stage for what I've experienced in adding video and automation to our pre-sales process. So to start off with, the way things were, and this is, again, my history pre-consensus. I moved into my position as manager of the solutions consultants team after being a manager in our training and consulting group. That's training, consulting, implementation services team. There was TCIS in my bio. I forgot to explain that. So good job to Taylor for not trying to throw out an acronym. Nobody knew what it was. But naturally, coming from the training team, all of the sales reps welcomed me with open arms and trusted everything that I did. that would have been nice. But no, I had to cut my teeth like everyone else when working with sales and prove my worth. And I was dealt, not to be too down on myself, but I was dealt a pretty rough hand. Our staffing, I had 8 very strong solutions consultants when I took over, and solutions consultants is Thomson Reuters title for a sales engineer. But they were supporting a pretty big cast of sales reps. And as you can imagine, with that many sales reps for that few number of solutions consultants, it resulted in challenges during busy season with our scheduling, which was handled by a different department at the time also. I'm pretty sure we can all agree that waiting 2 to 3 weeks for a demo can really kill the interest and energy of a purchase decision. And to compound the issue, a lot of demo requests are coming through were harbor tours, just like I actually have in my notes. Like Peter Cohen, our one of my co-presenters, the great demo concept. We want to get away from harbor tours, and what I wanted to focus on was his great demo concept and getting to focus on the most important things first. In some cases, we didn't even know what was important to the customer. And that's I think the hardest thing when you have a team of solutions consultants that's able to really dive in and prove the value and show what the products can do for a customer. Man, when they're on that autopilot, just going through high level overview features day in and day out, you lose the energy that's normally there. And I could see it in a lot of my team and the frustration that was there. And it's interesting because I put they led to frustration. And that's a nice way of putting it. But if you look at lack of availability for demos, my team may be pushing back on the sales reps for not having enough detail, an operations scheduling team that existed outside of sales. Yeah. Yep. This was me. This was me on most days, dealing with the challenges of leading an understaffed and overworked solutions consultants team. This kind of looks like the COVID hair that a lot of us are experiencing right now, right? I'm pretty sure one of my sales managers on a call this morning could rival the height of Jim Carrey's hair there. But ultimately, it was these challenges that prompted me to start researching and looking around for different technology solutions to simplify things and get more efficient. Instead of simply throwing more bodies at the problem, which historically was the answer, why not incorporate some technology tools? And it was interesting too, because as I listened to Kevin O'Brien this morning in the keynote, the transition to a more digital focused customer experience is a journey that we've been on as well. I think initially there's a lot of pushback to adding that digital experience to an existing process because customers just want to talk to a person. Right? Have you ever heard that before from the sales rep? Well, I'm going to send them the video. I just want to have them talk to a person. Well, I think it's very true regarding speaking to a sales rep, but there's plenty of data around the sales industry pointing to how much research a customer does online before even talking to a sales rep. And as far as viewing the digital content goes, I think it's becoming more and more acceptable. One of the questions during that keynote talked about, well, is there a potential degradation of implementation because of the no-touch experience in pre-sales? And just like Kevin said, SAP has experienced, I think we've had a much more clear understanding of expectations thanks to adopting some of those tools and being able to go back and look to see specifically what did they watch, who in the organization watched it, and so on. So I'd like to spend the next little bit sharing my experience with some of the technology tools that we've adopted. To really get a clear understanding of that experience, I want to give you an overview of a little bit of the tools there, and obviously Consensus. We have to, thank Garen and the team for putting all this together. And I reached out and made sure that I can talk a little bit about this, and like, oh, please, come on, that's what we're here for, is to go through your experience and my 100 days of using automation and video. It really hinges on the decision to move forward with Consensus. So for those of you that are not familiar, the platform takes recorded content and presents it in a way where the customer can choose what's important to them and craft a custom experience. It allows a sales rep to quickly transition from their discovery phase into providing that relevant product information, viewable at a time that's convenient to the customer and easily shareable with the fellow decision makers. The other benefit to the platform is the analytics and how a sales rep can use that information in their sales process. As far as my bullets go, building the content to focus on the value of the features, why they're important to a customer, not just going through and showing the click-throughs. Again, the client gets to pick and choose what they want to watch. It puts them in the driver's seat. And that's an actual important part with andragogy and adult learning, is that they want to be experiential in their process. They want to be involved. So having them to actually select those chapters and choose what they're what they're going to view in the demo, that really it brings the engagement level a lot higher. It's fairly easy to use. A sales rep puts some customer information in the platform, picks the demo they want, copies a link in an email, and boom, and they got it shipped out. Giving the basic value proposition cuts down on the length of the actual private demo, if there even is one needed. And I'll get to that in a little bit too, but in terms of shortening the sales cycle, it's really been interesting to see how this adoption has happened in our organization and where it's going to go in the future. Lastly, the on-demand access, it's viewable when the customer wants it, not when you have it available. So let me see if I can pull this up real briefly and give you an idea. If nobody has had an opportunity to see what it looks like from a customer's perspective, the first thing that they get is actually like an image link in an email, and they'll click that and it comes up to the splash screen where it would reference their firm's name, right? This is personalized content just for you. And they would see the details around, the stakeholders in the organization, who they want to take part. That's important in the analytics piece that we'll get to in a minute. But what tends to happen then is they'll get a quick intro. They'll get set the stage for what they want to talk about. And once they get to the end of the intro piece, they're presented with those chapters. And they're able to look through and then say, well, I would like to take a look at just a few of these items, but the rest of them maybe aren't that interesting to me. And the system then is going to take the selections that they have and craft that into a customized presentation focused on their order of operations being important to someone important and so on. So from there, I also like that they're prompted. If they skipped chapters, they chose not to select those, then they're going to go ahead and have the opportunity to rewatch or select to see those chapters. If they don't, great. They're prompted to, again, share that information with their additional stakeholders in the organization. And this is a piece that Kevin mentioned too in the keynote about how you're able to share that out and the ability to spread that across an organization in a very quick manner. That was something really impressive to me from the get-go, and being able to go through and reflect the details around how you can move things quickly through the entire process. From there, once the actual sales rep got the information presented, the client opens the demo, they start viewing the content, the rep gets a notification via email. They connect with the customer or they're able to connect with the customer rather, immediately following them watching the content. And that gives them a really nice example, a really nice advantage rather, being able to reinforce the value for what they just watched. The more time passes from a customer seeing something of interest, the harder it is to reignite that same interest. So the notification allows that sales rep to strike while the iron's hot. And that's really solid. If the notification happens outside of the normal business hours, or you want to see how many subsequent viewers of the demo there are, you can review all those demo boards and their engagement levels. I like to look at the total view time and see how much time they've invested. It gives you a nice little bit of insight into whether they're kicking the tires or if they're really closer to making a real decision. But you also have the total views, how many days it's been since they last looked at content. And that's some pretty relevant information as you're trying to sift through all the reps list of firms that they're dealing with. If you want to dive into an individual demo board, this looks a little bit like what Kevin showed this morning. And I had a very similar experience of Rex, my account executive at Consensus, that sent me a Consensus demo and was able to kind of prove the impact like this in my own organization and who we shared it out to and who was the necessary stakeholders to go ahead and connect with. But personally, I'm starting to catalog this information across all of our demos to determine how we craft those demonstrations moving forward. I can start to ask questions about, well, why is something not being viewed? Or why is it being skipped partway through? Or why, what is the need there? Do we need to recut a chapter in that? Do we need to refocus the messaging around it? I can start to ask those questions and then convey that to our product and marketing teams, and then work on, how do we overall change our development of our product cycles? So it's been really interesting to just kind of dive into the data and see what's there. I've definitely enjoyed the nerd side of me coming out and being able to run some reports and point to content and usage stats, and it's definitely been exciting for me. But to get back to what's the impact for everybody individually, think about the time that it takes to understand a customer's needs. And as a sales rep or a sales manager, how long would you say, on average, it takes to go through that discovery phase before you schedule a demo? Go ahead if you have anybody wants to share some of their process in the chat there about how long you spend in that discovery phase before you schedule a demo. I know in our case, there's multiple phone calls, potentially multiple attempts at phone calls before they get there. A couple hours, we've got some of the participants, 60 to 90 minutes. Yeah, there's a good range of time that ends up being scheduled there because you want to get into that discovery. Oh, great answer. Discovery is ongoing. Absolutely. You constantly, even throughout the demonstration, you're going to see examples of discovery as you go. I mean, I certainly don't want to portray that we're able to remove the discovery process. But what if you're able to cut down on the time it takes to get to the heart of their needs? How many of you wished you were a fly on the wall to observe what your customers were looking at when you send them information, whether that be recorded content or a PDF with information, or they send them to a website? I think a lot can happen that we would love to be around. And the coolest part of the Consensus Analytics platform for me is getting to see exactly what they watched and for how long. This gives reps the ammunition they need to specifically target the areas that customers spent the most time. So granted, again, discovery is going to be ongoing. You're going to follow up with this, but you're going to have a strong target, and it helps to narrow the focus of your discovery questions. Now, I certainly don't think that I would encourage a rep to say, well, I see you watched the chapter on documents 4 times. Man, that must be really important to you. That's a little bit too big brother. But I think there are definitely ways that we can convey that without letting the customer know that you know. If you're getting back to great demo, this is another layer to provide some intel on what the customer is deeming to be important, their why. And a rep's able to get it without perhaps those same multiple discovery calls after multiple attempts to get there. I'll get to our success with Consensus in a moment in terms of our first 100 days, but I did want to touch on another challenging aspect of what we dealt with in the past, and that's scheduling. Scheduling when I took over the team was a lot of back and forth with an operations team that existed outside of the sales realm. They went back and forth with customers, confirming dates and times, and did scheduling adjustments and all sorts of fun things that really wasn't the most user-friendly interaction. So I started off and I researched options and decided ultimately on Microsoft Bookings, which is part of the Office 365 suite. The bullets to the right there are pretty helpful in terms of organizing what really made the decision easy for me to go through. In my specific area, we organized 2 different booking calendars, one for our large firm division and one for small to mid. So you're customizable in terms of the content, the types of offerings, anything that you can create there. And while it does take some time to set up and get all the offerings that you want into the system, I did find it fairly easy to go through and set up and then deploy to our sales teams. It gives you some options to allow for a specific presenter and they can choose who they want. Or, and what I actually tend to prefer is more the round robin style where it'll automatically pick a presenter. It does lean on Outlook calendars for availability, and it's an automatic push and pull in terms of when things do get scheduled. But this is great for me getting newer staff into delivering. You know, sales reps tend to always want the same rep that did a great job for them. I think we all might have that person in our organization that sales reps love to have in a demo. They've got energy, they've got passion, but they're one person and they can't go across 250 sales reps. And, you know, sometimes it's hard to get new staff FaceTime with reps who, you know, their job relies on making commission. But for me, the round robin option gets them, everybody has a pool of availability. They pick a date and a time, it randomly selects somebody. And I tell the sales reps the same thing I tell my kids: you get what you get and you don't throw a fit. That's kind of the only way to approach it. The mobile app piece is nice. And since I kind of run the administration of it, if I'm not near my laptop, I can make some changes and adjustments and things through the mobile app, which really makes it nice in this new COVID world of juggling kids and work simultaneously. In this particular tool, we rolled out to our sales floor beginning of April last year, and it now helps to schedule my team of 18 who support that sales division of a little more than 250 reps. The tool does allow sales reps to manage their own bookings. So any date and time changes, they can do that on their own without having to go back and forth in a long string of emails with the presenter and figure out what's most applicable. Overall, I'd say it's successful for about 80 to 85% of all demos that are scheduled. You know, there's always going to be special requests. People are going to have particular personality things that might work better with another presenter, and I manage those special requests myself. But it is a fairly smooth process to go through and do that. To give you an idea, again, I always like to give the experience to show out what's going on there. This is what a sales rep would see in our small to mid division when they go to select a particular topic. So these are all the demo types that we've got built out, and they'd choose the topic that they want. They would find the date and time that they would want to reflect that in the area below. They can then slide down into the add your details area. And this is where they would put their name, their email for contact from my team to them. And then we've gone through and added additional custom fields for more or less an info sheet. You know, the details for us to reference our internal processes, who's the contact, what's their title, how do we get in touch with them? And then this is the crux of the detail that we look for. And again, this goes back to the great demo concept. What is the most important things they need to see to make their decision? Competitor always helps. We can craft that information a little bit and tweak it a little bit to whoever they're using currently. And they just simply click book, and they're able to have the instant back and forth with the, or instant confirmation rather, coming right directly to their email and move forward from there. So my team gets the confirmation, the sales rep gets the confirmation, and everybody is happy and done, and I don't touch a thing. So we've definitely had success with it. I would say to check out office.com and just do a quick search for bookings. It is part of the 365 suite, as I mentioned, and see if it might work for your scheduling situation. It's certainly alleviated a need for us to have a separate group of individuals to schedule demos on our behalf. So helpful for sure. All right, so on to the good stuff. I have to say my decision to use this tool was reinforced with our first 2 deployments. The first 2 sales reps that we had used the consensus tool sent out a tax demo, and they both resulted in sales of our tax product, and they didn't require a private demo. You could say I felt pretty good about my decision after that. Now, I will say we were pretty strategic with our rollout. We didn't immediately give access to the entire sales floor. I'm not sure if any of you know sales reps, but the ones that I know, several of them tend to trust what they're familiar with. So we needed to build some excitement and trust in a new addition to their sales process. So we picked a select group, about 10 reps that were open-minded, they were hungry, they wanted something, and we let them loose with just 2 demos to start. And after 30 days, most of the sales floor was begging for access. By that time, we had several more demos available, and once everybody had the tool, they were off to the races. Throughout Q4 of 2019, we were able to secure right around $500,000 in sales that solely relied on consensus demos. No private demos needed. Now, I can already feel some of you, if you're sales engineers out there, pulling back and thinking, oh no, I'm going to be replaced by technology. And believe me, some of my team actually had that same response to me as well. But don't fret. My goal, and actually something Kevin O'Brien mentioned this morning too, is that the goal of the pre-sales automation has never been to reduce staff. I've actually been able to hire more since we adopted the consensus platform. The goal is to get my team of experts to stretch those muscles more often and do what they're great at. Connect with customers and convey the value that our products can offer. And the best way to do that, having a clear target on the demo. How do we do that? You got to give them the basic content beforehand and then let them self-identify their triggers for their buying decision. Those are what I want my team to have a laser focus on, tying every example to the features back to what's important to the customer. And ultimately, if they choose to purchase without a private demo, guess what? Now they can spend the time working on those clients that need the extra hand holding. Instead of playing the guessing game going into each demo, is it going to be a harbor tour, or am I really going to get the chance to blow this customer's mind? Identify, simplify, and close them. So we had, in the first 100 days, about 7,500 demo boards that were created and delivered by sales reps. Of those that were generated, we kept a 32% open rate. And as I'm looking at, what's chosen, what wasn't chosen, when did a customer choose to stop the chapter, things like that, I'm really hoping that we can tweak our content, and the 2020 number through our selling season that's just now getting underway will increase that number. Now, if you think about who your sales rep is engaging with at a firm, is it always the buyer, or is it sometimes an office manager or another door opener? Well, when sending out these demo boards, the customers themselves forwarded them and identified another almost 850 individuals that had a stake in the buying decision. I thought that was pretty awesome. We look at collectively, like, how do we find the right people to view our content? This was just, they're sharing it along as they went, and it was just awesome to see that happen. Lastly, our average view time was right around 9 minutes, 19 seconds. So how did that first 100 days compare to my expectations? To be honest, I wasn't sure what to expect. I think we all fall into routines that we become comfortable, and we never really ask why we continue to do the things that we do. Consensus gave me and my team the opportunity to take a deeper look at what our role is in the sales organization. Now, instead of having my team deliver 4 to 5 demos a day, day in and day out, with barely any breathing room, we're starting to be able to strategize with reps more. This has taken it where some automation of this initial content, we take the generic kind of overview harbor tour content value proposition, and equally important, don't get me wrong, but give the opportunity for that basic content to get out there and then open up some of the bandwidth. We're able to, like I said, strategize with reps, talk about solutions and what would be the best fit, even help to coach sometimes with product knowledge and helping to identify better qualification questions. I got the opportunity to specialize my team into groups by product and spend our preseason deepening product knowledge. And I really feel that our benefit to the sales team isn't just our ability to deliver killer demos, which we're going to do that anyways, but we want to help the sales organization grow and adapt with our products. So another question, and we'll kind of keep this brief. I know our time is definitely special here. Think about your normal demo. How much time, or a standard demo rather, how much time is spent on the actual delivery? And just to kind of put in context, we found on average about an hour, 45 minutes an hour. A few chats coming through where they reference some of those, you bet. Ours were again right around that same time frame, an hour, 90 minutes in some cases. And what we experienced in most situations was that someone from the firm had seen recorded content or a webinar, but not all of the stakeholders. So we found we'd spend an average of about half of the time of the length of the demo going over those high-level features and value propositions to make sure that everybody was on the same page with the basics, and then we could get to uncovering what was really important. What I'm starting to see happen now with the implementation of consensus is that if there's a resulting private demo, it's got very targeted focus. Maybe the firm operates in Pennsylvania or Ohio or New York and California. Our tax division is kind of a big part of what we do. Those areas have more, we'll say, challenging tax laws. Or maybe the firm has got a niche market, or they work with a specialty type of tax return or an audit. The demos that follow a consensus demo are closer to 30 minutes or less. And they aren't showing the length and breadth of the program, but rather focusing on the few specific questions that they need to check off the boxes before they make their purchase decision. Think about what you could do with 30 minutes back from every demo your team delivers or you deliver. What could you accomplish? Could you spend time on competitor intel? Could you listen to Peter Cohen and sharpen your saw on presentation skills? Could you deepen product knowledge? Maybe build stronger relationships with your sales teams? All the above? Hopefully, that's the goal. But I know, just seeing how things are going now, it's been pretty powerful for my team. All right, so enough waxing poetic. I really am impressed with my team and what we've been able to accomplish with the help of some of this new technology. But let me preface what we've seen so far right now for growth and talk about the timeline here. Roughly January to March is our slow time of the year in the tax and accounting industry, so some of these stats will be reflective of that. But so far in 2020, we're up to about 6,500 demo boards, and that's in our slow season, so I'm pretty happy with that stat. We did tick up our open rate by a percentage point, so we're going the right direction there. Another 800 stakeholders discovered in the midst of January to now, and we actually upped our average view time again by about 10 seconds. I can say I've had great success with the technology tools that we've implemented, and I've seen an overall increase in connection with customers. I'm currently in the process of sifting through the data. Like I said, a little bit of a nerd to go back and look at numbers, but to really understand how much we have impacted the sales cycles and point to some more clarity in that information. Ultimately, I do think you need to clearly understand your current state. Are you operating in a status quo environment? Are you content with where you're at with your sales process? Or do you consider yourself in a growth phase? Maybe you're curious and you're trying to move the needle in new and creative ways. If that's you, that was me 4 years ago. And it took me on a path that brought me into, thankfully being able to utilize consensus and in our case, Microsoft Bookings for scheduling and start to move the needle and really impact volume. If you look at just the total number of demos we've delivered from when we rolled this process out, times the number of man hours to deliver that volume, it's nowhere near what our capabilities are by a personal body. And again, I don't want to pull people out of the process. I firmly believe that people are always at the heart of the pre-sales process. And that includes the customer, the sales rep, the sales engineer. Personal interactions are always going to have a place in that sales cycle. But if we're able to use technology to be a force multiplier, that's how we've been able to grow our sales division and my solutions consultants team. So again, this is just kind of my experience through it. I've been really lucky to be able to work with Rex and Alex, our client success manager, to kind of tweak what we've been able to do and what we've been able to accomplish over the course of coming up on the last year here. And I do definitely want to thank Garen and the team at Consensus for putting a spotlight on an industry that they're a part of the sales industry that doesn't necessarily get the the sexy borderline that everybody else does, right? Pre-sales is an unsung hero of the process. And I've definitely been happy to utilize technology in the way that we have and see some success with it. So I do see that there are some questions that are coming up in the Q&A.
Can you see those, Tony? Or do you want me to tee some up for you, or is there some that look like you'd like to jump in on already?
Yeah, no, if you want to jump in, I've got a couple here too that I can see. But yeah, if you want to jump in and start the first one off, I'll see what we got.
Well, one that caught my attention was how can we access this tool for pre-sales activity, pre-demo activity before a demo? And I think you may have touched on that, but is there anything you'd like to add to that at all in answering that one?
So pre-demo, so almost like a qualification phase. Interestingly enough, yes, I didn't get into the details, but there's a couple different types of demos in Consensus. There's a single video where it plays much like YouTube style. And then there's the chapterized content, which is much what I focused on. And I feel like we've gotten a lot more engagement with the chapters. But for pre-demo activity, almost like a prospecting tool, we started to create snippets, teaser videos, if you will, in that single video section, and allow that to be used with a prospecting cadence. And then what you can have some mail merge functionality and get a broad audience or a particular type of audience with a particular type of demo. But that's definitely something that we're starting to see. Sales reps are going to have much more success with a targeted already hand raise of interest on that content before you even get to the true demo phase. And then the subsequent pieces of that, as we look towards this digital experience, is perhaps the chapterized Consensus demo to follow that after some additional qualification from the sales rep. So yeah, we've started to branch off in that area, and we're starting to see some success with early there. You bet. A question here on who builds the content, the chapters, the narrates, the click-throughs, and right now I do rely a lot on my solutions consultants for that. My sales engineers are the ones who are the experts. They're the ones that have the stories and the narrative that really connect the value to the features. And instead of having a separate group, maybe in marketing or maybe in product, that don't touch the company or the customers directly like we do, they don't necessarily add the flavor that we want. So we work directly with them and make sure that team, who can add the narratives to the main points we want to show, they do the recording piece of it. It is something of a area of focus for me is the audio quality. We were lucky when we did work in the office in Ann Arbor. we had a recording studio there with a really quality podcast microphone. If you focus on that audio, I think that's one of the things that we really tried to make sure hit home is very strong. That's been quite helpful. And then, depending on how you want to get your videos created, any recording tool that gets an MP4 at the end result, Camtasia is a popular one I know a lot of people use. There is one built into Consensus that they link to directly called Screencast-O-Matic. Very easy to use. I've found it where I pretty much taught myself how to use it. It's pretty easy to navigate and cut out, make some editing for video and audio. Do highlights and call outs. It's definitely a nice, easy way to do it and get you to the point where you can do things quickly.
I think that response you just gave dovetails nicely into a question on demo maintenance in terms of re-recording demos or changing them up. Is there any tips you have there?
Yeah, and another thing about the platform that makes it really easy to do just that, if you have a feature update, if you have a UI change or something that's going to impact what's already existing in that demo, the ability to just take and re-record a single chapter. In the past, what we would do is to have a full single video, right? It'd be 30 minutes long of the whole demo. And if there's any change, you had to re-record the whole content, you got to edit, and everything takes longer to do that. In this case, you've got those bite-sized pieces of the chapters somewhere in maybe the 5 to 7 minute range. Have one of my team pull off, take 20 minutes, go cut it. I go take a little bit of time to edit it, upload it into the existing demo, and boom, it's live. So it is a very nice and easy way to update things quickly and be able to then just seamlessly transition that, right? It's already in the existing list of demos that the sales reps know and are familiar with, and they just start sending out the new content from there.
Awesome. Did you have one that you wanted to answer, or should I tee you up one more? I had one.
Yeah, go right ahead. You bet.
Okay. One had mentioned that there a clear benefit you had a large amount of potential customers and a lot of inquiries come in. How could it work for smaller companies where they don't have as many inquiries? Do you have any thoughts on that one at all?
Um, it's interesting because it's not necessarily direct inquiries that drive it. This is something where, aside from um, our dabbling into that kind of prospecting phase of it, these are active conversations that sales reps are going to have with a customer prior to sending out that content. So, from the size of an organization, there's several divisions across Thomson Reuters that are piloting this now that we've kind of shown our success with it in the tax and accounting professional group. And one of those is, operating overseas, and they touch different areas, including like Russia, and they've got 2 sales reps for the entirety of the country. It's not that they're getting a ton of inquiries coming their way, but they know that there's a market out there, a subset of clients or a specific group of people we're trying to reach. And I think that's where, you can leverage, instead of, the volume component. In my case, I'm trying to limit the volume of private demos and use this as a force multiplier. I think the same holds true is in a smaller group. If you can get that content out initially and get a hand raise and find somebody that's got the interest to then take it to the next stage, well, it's that next stage where I want to spend my time if I'm a solutions consultant or I'm a sales rep. I want those more engaged people rather than just kicking the tires. And this just helps to facilitate that and get the true hand raise to be able to see analytics, what they watched for how long, and then move it to the next phase.
Yeah, speaking of what they watched and how long, one question that was in the chat that may have fallen by the wayside, so to speak, is they mentioned, how does the length of time where you showed and how much time they'd viewed, how does that compare with how long the recordings actually were?
So that's a great point too. Yeah. So our average view time, in most instances, the chapterized content we put together, our rule of thumb is, like I said, about 5 to 7 minutes per chapter, no more than 5 to 7 chapters total, because you get a bit of decision paralysis from a customer at that point. So in a lot of cases, 20 to 25 minutes is roughly, if they watched every chapter we recorded, would be the full length of the demo. And since they're self-selecting, if we're averaging in that 9 minutes and 30-second range, they're right around that halfway mark, which is ideally what we want to do. One thing I didn't mention on the chapter piece too, in how you want to craft the narrative, is that there's got to be a theme through all of those, right? Because if they do choose maybe 1 or 2 chapters, you've got to convey the message of that product in all of the chapters, so that if they only choose 1 or 2, they've got a clear vision of what you're trying to accomplish with the content that's at hand. I also will say that we do have some in our single video section where we've converted a webcast. So maybe they're 20 to 30 minutes long. And in those cases, if I look at those specifically, you might have about like a 17-minute average watch time for some of them. So it's about the same as if you look at research on YouTube. It's about half the time of the overall length. That's the average of what we run into, and our statistics point to about the same.
Yeah, while you're talking about chaptering and changing things, one person asked, how would this work when you have a matrix structure, meaning several products in several different markets? Have you tried using it that way, or are you mostly with the one that you have?
Oh boy, yeah, no. We started off with a couple products and ran from there, but we've got software that we go through. We've got research content that we've got out there. And now that we've branched off into different divisions with the large firm and the small to mid, it's interesting, where you can apply it. And the challenge, I think, is finding the right knowledge resource to connect with the customer base you're trying to do. Kevin talked about being scalable this morning. And I think that's one of the big things is if you've got a structure with how we approach it, continue that narrative format, understand the value propositions, focus on the why, do all the things that are consistent with whatever the product is. You can still see across divisions, and what we've seen in most of the pilots that are running on, whether in the UK or somewhere or other around the world, it's very similar. So I don't know that there's a set difference that comes into different industries or types of companies, but our product sets right now span from legal offerings to tax and accounting and audit, and the research components have been very interesting to try and take something that's more transactional and still put a value to it in a demo format. So yeah, we definitely, I don't think necessarily that there's an area where it doesn't fit, unless it's somewhere that the sales rep is maybe more intimately involved and they don't have the digital experience. But I'm a firm believer that adding this to an existing process is only going to benefit the sales rep in the long term.
Right. Yeah, and where you have multiple markets, like you mentioned, one person was curious. They said they can see an immediate advantage to using it for multi-language capabilities. Have you ever delved into that before with your team?
We're just starting to, actually, and that's a great question. There is a bit of a language translator that's in some recording tools that are out there. So, how do you meet a need in a different market? Specifically, we've got a lot of our tax professionals that are in Puerto Rico. So the Spanish version of our demos is what we're right now getting into. We've got the knowledge resource, we've got the content. We just need a translator to go through and use it. But the splash screens in Consensus, they've got some different options for global platforms where the language translator is going to be there. I really think that it's contingent on what's the resource in the market. Again, I go back to whoever your knowledge resource is for that area, but how do you connect with customers in that industry? How can you basically take what you would do in a private demo, the basic overview content, focus on those value propositions and relate it back to that area? To me, it's the scalability side of it, though. How can we do something that's not in Michigan and Ann Arbor? We can reach across the world with a tool like this and be able to scale our organization.
Right. There's one other question here, but did you have any that you wanted to expand on or that you had before the demo that you already had from people that submitted?
Yeah, I kind of weaved them in as I was talking there. I had some
perfect.
Product changes, who takes it, how long. Oh, I will mention real quickly though, one of the things that comes up is, how long does it take to build the content out? That's a real common question that comes out of this. And again, if you look at the overall time to deliver, if it's a set delivery time of say 30 minutes, build in some time for the presenter to take a breath, take a drink, use a restroom, this and that. So I usually set aside a couple hours for one of my team to do the recording. I'll normally go through in the editing piece and take roughly the same amount of time, maybe a little less, and get it edited. You upload the MP4s to the platform, and then you send out a message to the sales floor saying that another demo is available. So it's an easy same day process if, again, you've got that knowledge resource on hand to be able to take the time away from maybe doing demos to go record something for a little bit.
Yeah, that's smart. Well, we're coming up on the last couple minutes here to start the next session. Is there anything else you'd like to leave everyone with right before we start to sign off?
Well, I definitely want to thank everybody again for taking part and listening through our experience or what we've gone through implementing our technology tools. Again, I thank Aaron and the team at Consensus for everything they've done at this case to set this up and give us a platform to talk about the industry.
Awesome. Thanks. Well, I appreciate it. I learned a lot. I hope everyone else did as well. Hopefully we got to everyone's questions. There's a couple I wrote down that I'll try and follow up with you on as well.
Please.
But I'm gonna grab the screen share back here really quick. And our next session, if you'd like to join, these are the next two tracks we have at 12 p.m., one with Garen and one with Julie Hansen. And on these topics here, you should have the unique links that are for you individually in your email. That said, if you don't have them, if you go to our DEMOFEST website, which is just demofest2020.com, and go to the agenda underneath each speaker, there's a link to where you can join any of those there's a link so you can join them just straight from there as well. Or if you need to share that with anyone else on your team, they can quickly join that way too. But thanks, and we look forward to seeing you on future sessions.